I think sales is a super noble profession when done right. I think it's gotten a tougher name over the years. I feel like it's coming back a little bit. Like people are more happy to say, like, I'm in sales.
So, welcome to Growth Game. We're delighted to be joined by Andrea Morter this week, who's a sales expert and a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I think it's fair to say. How are you doing, Andrea?
Doing great, doing great. Really excited to join you guys. And thanks for having me on. Thank you for the invite. Much appreciated.
We're thrilled to have you and get a look inside your brain and your approach to, I guess, the meat and potatoes of any business really is like getting sales. You got to get sales to keep going. So I guess to start off with, if you could maybe tell us like a little bit about your journey through sales and as an entrepreneur and kind of if there was a turning point where you thought, oh yeah, sales is for me, because I think it's quite a common thing where sales is probably the most intimidating aspect of a business because it's just you either sell or you don't. Like it's quite scary, eh?
For sure. So I think I kind of always grew up with a little bit of sales in my background and entrepreneurial need, the combination of those two things. My journey really started, my parents were entrepreneurs growing up, and I did some sales actually like in high school, phone sales for a telemarketing company for timeshares.
Oh
So
wow.
I guess if we're going to talk about really started, it
Yeah.
technically probably when I was like 15 or 16. Truly then, I think I just saw the money, right? Like I saw that, oh, this is exciting. You can make a lot of money in sales. I think later in life, I realized how much of a relationship sales really is. And I think in the business world, the relationship has to really translate in your sales process because you can make the quick sales, right? But if you're the entrepreneur, the quick sale isn't really what pays you, right? It's the long term, it's the relationship. You've got to have a true value, a true need that you're filling. There has to be a real pain point, or that sale is going to turn over as quick as you brought it in. You can have these killer sales skills and pull them in today, but they'll be gone a week from now because it wasn't really something that had value and the relationship wasn't there.
So that's the complete opposite of trying to sell a timeshare over the phone then.
Yeah, totally. It is the complete opposite. That is a quick sale. I can sell you. I'm never going to talk to you again or see you again. And as a salesperson, I'm going to be paid on that this week, right? And whatever happens after I've booked you for that and you show up, that's really not my issue. I think when we talk about sales in the entrepreneurial world, right? We own IV nutrition clinics and sale there is extremely different, right? Like we're really truly trying to help you change your life, make you feel better, help you look better, help you live longer. And to sell you on that is a much more relational. We have to really understand your needs and want you to come back to truly help you and see the investment in it rather than hey, buy this today. And whether you ever come back again, it doesn't really matter.
I guess the
Right.
difference there is you're selling like a lifestyle, right?
For sure. And I think that I do two totally different playing field type of sales, right? Like the IV nutrition world is the medical side, holistic wellness. And then I also own a payments company. So that's B2B financials looking at a business service. I actually see a lot of relation between those two things and that long-term relationship. Even though it's an extremely different sale, there's a lot in common there because you have to really get what somebody needs for the long term, how you're actually going to help them for years to come, whether you're helping them grow in business or you're helping them grow and feel better in life. You've got to see the long game of 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now. Where do you want to help this person be? Or where do you want to help this business be rather than just a quick get them through the door, sign this deal, move on? I think that's a very different type of transactional sale.
So now you have to share your secret because how do you run two businesses that are completely different at the same time?
It's interesting because I find a lot of overlap in what I do, which seems like there wouldn't be a ton, but there's a lot more than you think. I think when you're running businesses, you're dealing with humans, right? So leading people, inspiring people, setting a vision, although the vision may be different or the roadmap may be different, you need a similar structure and leadership and vision. All businesses need the same foundational structure. And I think to your point, when you opened up, like everything in the world is sales, whether you think it's sales or not. Like the directors of our clinics by trade are nurses. So the idea that this is a sales type of role at all is a little mind bending for them sometimes, I think. And it's helping them understand that literally everything you do, even if you're nursing in the hospital, there's enrollment, whether you're selling them something for money or you're enrolling them and changing their life, right? Whatever position you're in, there's some sort of enrollment buy-in sales process in everything you do.
Yeah, you need to that user and like you need to persuade them. There's always some element of persuasion, isn't there?
Raising children, being in a marriage.
I was about
all
to
of-
go this way as well with kids. Like you have to negotiate even more with kids than customers. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
I have a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old. So they're different forms of the sales process,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you got to sell them on everything too. Dinner
Like,
to bathtub. Like those all need a
like to pocket money and to haircuts and to everything.
yeah, for sure.
So obviously our business is gamification, so we try to add a bit of that into this podcast. If you're ready to jump into some quick fire questions, this round is called Schrodinger's Startup.
I
Nick.
didn't read these quick fire questions, so
But
real
but
time.
as we were saying before, you thrive under pressure, so these are going to be amazing, I'm sure. Imagine your 18-year-old self time traveling to the present day, but carrying all the business and sales knowledge you've acquired over your career. So this is for people just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, and it's to get your expertise on the broader business landscape. So question one, your 18-year-old self has $5,000 in capital and 3 months to make something happen. What industry do you specialize in and why?
I'd have to say payment.
I
It's
was
just
worried you were going to cheat and use your existing business that you've just done. Go on.
it's an incredible opportunity that if you are hungry and you go get it, there is a need. You can truly help people with their business.
I remember some relative always said, you should become an undertaker because people will always need undertakers. But I suppose from a payments point of view, every business needs to take payments.
That's when I was teaching new hires. That's actually crazy enough. One of the real catch 22s to teaching new people to payment sales is that the world is your oyster, right? Like
Yeah.
in every single business needs a way to receive funds, and 99% of them want to take that in a credit card payment. So you literally can go anywhere and talk to anybody. So trimming that down is also one of the challenges, but it makes it where you have a very broad audience of who you go after. Also, if you're smart, if you can Google things, if you can pick up knowledge quickly, it's just an industry where you can just jump in. There's a lot to learn, but I was 22 and I started 1099 in this business, and I didn't go through a training class. I sat on like a Zoom call for 3 hours and they sent me a little flip book, and you learn a lot on the go. So I think if you have drive, if you have grit, if you're willing to go out and put in the work, it is a very learn while you get paid business.
And the other big advantage is getting paid isn't about to go out of style.
I don't think so.
No, I
I
don't think so
mean,
either. Okay, question two. Where do you see the biggest opportunities today compared to when you started? How has the game of business changed, particularly on the sales side? I appreciate you're quite young, so like maybe it's not changed that much, but it does feel like the pace of change, particularly in tech and business, just in the time I've been alive, seems to have been absolutely rapid. So yeah, biggest opportunities today compared to when you did start first in sales.
so I would have to say that what I think is really interesting that has changed over the last several years is I've seen the trend of local sales presence move to a lot more of the SaaS market where we have a lot of people selling over the phone, online, via email, right? Which truly, I believe, opens up a massive opportunity for you to go back to the local market, hands on, meet with somebody in person presence. I do think that because it's the kind of pendulum theory, right? Yes, people want things faster. They want it more convenient. They don't want to be limited to just what they have access to in their local area. But I think people miss that human to human interaction. I think our team, the agents we have like at Lumina who are selling, they are mostly walking into these businesses and meeting with them one on one. And I do think it makes a really big difference in the human connection, especially after COVID and everything became digital. People want to know somebody, right? So at least the video connections, I think less over email. So from what you're saying, what's changed? I almost think it changed to more digital. And I think we're coming back to a place where people want more human interaction and we're skipping some of that in the process.
Yeah, that would be my question, like wondering if is it like what people want? Because you can see like Amazon or you can see like even supermarket deliveries be,
Yeah.
becoming like mainstream stuff. Like nobody is going to the supermarket anymore, or at least not as much as that used to be. Yeah, it's a good perspective, but I wonder if digital is still not like trying to take over and will take over the next few years.
Yeah. I
It's
agree with you. I think there's it again, like I think that pendulum theory, right? Like I think we've got to find some middle ground. I think we've moved so much to fast digital convenience. And I think there's a lot of things that people really want that way. I'm a massive Amazon user and I never walk in the grocery store. Like never. I
yeah,
pick up my
that's
groceries
why.
100% of the time. However, I don't want to order my food at a fine dining restaurant on a QR code and not talk to the server about the specials,
Yeah, okay,
right?
I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, if I'm going to buy a car, I don't want to use an online thing that's going to drop off a car in my driveway. So I think there's certain things that like we crave some human interaction. And I think we actually crave a little bit of the sales process, the make me feel valued.
but mainly based on the premium moments of life. Then, like things that should not be like online, but that should be like an
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, exactly. More of the experience. And I think how complicated the sale is, right? Are you going to really get to know me and ask me the questions that can't always be figured out in a quick 10 question survey to figure out what I want or need?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what we can see as well, because more and more we can see even with Drumify and our gamification platform, we can see like luxury brands trying to bring more interactions, better experiences for their customers, because I think they realize that just trying to sell something is not enough anymore. You have to give
Right.
people like some extra value, like you said, to close the sale. So yeah, that's something, because we've got like a lead at the moment where it's an agency working for luxury cars like Ferraris and stuff like that. And they
Yeah.
want to introduce gamification into their strategy. But for us, like it's like gamification can be seen as entertainment, can be seen as maybe not the best fit for the luxury sector. But in fact, gamification is all about interactions. And that's where they understood that they have to bring this extra interaction thing to their customer experience to make them feel better about it and to go maybe further with sales as well. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's the relationship again, right? We're seeing experience, we're seeing the sales process, but without some of that human interaction, like the convenience is a factor on one side of that pendulum, the speed, how fast you can get it done. I think the other side is the relationship, which I'm not going to get from the digital world. I'm not going to get from AI. So I just feel like when we get to a point where there's a more luxury,
Maybe soon AI is going fast.
Just because we're on AI just now, we're talking about how you're not getting that experience from AI. Just a question: if you read a book, you read a novel, and you were like, "Oh, that was absolutely amazing." If you then found out it had been written by like ChatGPT 7, you'd hate it retroactively, right? Do you know what I mean? You just no.
no, I don't mind that. It's a but I really enjoy what AI is doing. Honestly, I think it's extremely helpful from a blank slate,
Mhm.
right? It's extremely helpful to help you generate thoughts. I think of it more of talking out with you. Hey, what should I post about? Or can you help me write this blog? Or, hey, does this sound good? Does this sound weird? Can you help me walk through this? I think there's a lot of uses where AI can help to bounce ideas.
Hmm.
I just don't think it's an end all be all, right? Like you're not going to get the human side of things for a while,
Well,
right? Maybe
yeah,
they
we'll
can turn
see.
it into, I don't know, maybe it can walk and talk, but it can't today. It can't give you a hug.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to the main questions then. You've obviously done really well in sales, which I think traditionally has been quite like a male dominated industry, at least historically. Have you seen like a change in the culture of sales from when you first started to today? Because again, it just feels like everything's changed so much in the last sort of 20 years or so. Do you notice that, or is that something that you think that it's just perceived and not a reality?
I think there's definitely changes in women finding growth in the marketplace in general, right? Like I do think there is a ton of opportunity. I think in sales, there is massive opportunity for women. I think women feel that more as well. I definitely think there's a lot more women in sales than there used to be. I also think it's very, what field are we talking about?
Okay.
Because there's women in sales in lots of fields that men are not really in, right? There's women dominated sales fields at this point. I do think it gets a little harder for women to grow in leadership in sales for sure. I think that still exists today. And I think that's probably more subconscious bias than anything that anyone actively doing. And I think it's a lot on women to ask, to try, to stand up and say, hey, I want this. I want to go here. These are my goals. How do I get there? And I think women are more likely to sit back and wait to be asked to grow into something where I think men are, they generally push a little more and say, hey, I want to be in management or I want to be the VP, where I think women are often a little more timid about that, and they're not going to get there if they're being timid about it.
I read something that was saying that was on average, like a woman will look at a job description and be like, oh, I don't tick every box on here. I won't bother applying. A man will look on and be able to read it and be like, I can figure that out. Let's go.
The last time we chatted, we talked about this, and I had just read a meme or a blog or something, a post somewhere that said that I don't remember what the stat was, but it was like 80% of men believe they could get into a fighter jet and fly it with no previous experience. They just think I could get in there and do that, right? I don't, women, I think it said that 30% of women responded the same way. That's a massive gap to men feeling like, oh, I'll just figure it out. And women who are like, yeah, no, I'm not just going to get in it and figure it out. So
Why do you think it's like this? Do you think women are more like realistic about things, or what could explain this? Because you're right, like maybe a man like in a plane would be like, okay, I can do it. Why not?
I have to be super honest. I don't really know what that is because I would vote I could probably figure it out.
That's
Not,
it.
I'm not
That's it.
totally
So that's why.
confident. I'm not sure I could figure it out, but I've never got in one. And Google
Well,
can teach you a
sorry,
lot.
you think you can figure out how to fly a
I
fighter jet? Is that
know this is a bad example, but I do feel like I could mostly figure things out, right? With some time. I
Yeah.
actually joked with a friend a couple of weeks ago that I feel like I could rebuild an engine if I had the time to figure out how to do it. That doesn't mean if you told me, hey, you got to rebuild this car engine today, that I feel confident that I could do that. But I think if it was like, hey, like you absolutely have to figure out how to rebuild the engine to this vehicle. Could I do that? Yeah. Yeah, I think I could. I just think we have an insane amount of access to information today. And I'm not going to figure it out by myself, but there's like probably hundreds of thousands of YouTube videos. So if I had enough time and I had the patience and I had a good reason to need to figure it out, yeah.
It's not even like about being a woman or a man. It's about confidence and resilience. So for me, those are the same elements of entrepreneurship. If you are not a little bit confident and a little bit and a lot a lot more
Yeah.
resilient, you're not gonna go anywhere with the business. So yeah, I don't think it's about a gender thing. It's more about the attitude, the mindset you get.
I agree. I do think that historically, or for whatever reason, women have not given themselves that sort of credit to run after it. So I do think we as a group could continue to lift and inspire and show that these things are possible for younger women coming up, coming into leadership, challenging the status quo, getting in seats that have mainly been male dominated. Like, I do think all of those things are important. To your point, I think that we think that just resilience, grit, those things get us there. And I just recently made a LinkedIn post about this. I feel like I've had this epiphany in the last 6 months or so that you can beat your head against the wall forever and you'll eventually bust a hole through that wall. But if you don't know why you're doing it, it's a lot harder to get there. So in sales and business, like knowing where you're going and having the vision, I actually think needs to come before the confidence and the drive. I think confidence can hinder you sometimes if you're overly confident about something that you're not humble enough to actually step back and learn how to do. If I start ripping apart the engine of the car before I've taken any time to figure out where I'm going because I'm confident that I can figure this out, I might actually really screw that up.
Yeah, but that's where I was keeping like confidence and resilience together, because it's being confident on our own resilience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
being like, okay,
Overcome
it's
that I
gonna
won't.
be tricky, it's gonna be difficult, but I can make it happen. And because
Yeah.
I will never stop, it will pay off at some point.
I
I actually really
actually
like that. Like you're confident about your ability to be resilient. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was this way, not saying you have to be confident, because when you start to be confident, I think it's the end. It's the start of the end.
yeah,
Confident.
there's definitely a fine line. Like you got to be confident enough to walk in the room and try. But if you're too confident that you're not a little worried, then I don't know, you might be
Yeah.
hurting yourself.
I mean,
Yeah,
wisdom's knowing what you
exactly.
don't know, eh? How do you so like, I know you've mentored like other saleswomen in the past. That's something you've jumped in and out of. Do you factor that into what do you teach them? Because you said you can obviously teach yourself a lot of sales, but what kind of wisdom are you passing along then?
That's a really good question. I think it's adaptive to where everyone is at. Like you really got to get to know where they are in their journey. A couple of the women that I mentored were like just coming out of college and starting in their first sales jobs. So I think that was a lot of their questions were super in depth on actual sales processes. So I think we spent a lot of time on how do I get these sales going? What's the right way to approach? So I think we really got into the weeds a lot around sales process, but I think also just probably the resilience, right? You have to be able to step back, reset, and then go back to the drawing board over and over again in sales because I think especially when you're first learning your own sales voice, I guess I would call it, right? Everybody has their own way of going about things, and it's not as easy as just run the playbook that the company gave you. Like, you've got to know what your personal sales style is. And I think that takes some unpacking of where are they at? What do they believe in? What's important to them? And why are they doing this? Like, why are they even in sales? What are they trying? Where are they trying to go? And if they're trying to get to leadership, if they're trying to move up with this company, their strategy may be totally different than I need to make some good sales here for a year and then my degree is going to give me a job in some totally other field, right? Your strategies of how you're accomplishing those things would be totally different.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of it from that way. I guess but yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Everyone's going to have, it just depends where, like all teaching, it depends where anyone's starting. I suppose to speak more generally about sales in itself, then, what's like the most unconventional or like off the wall kind of sales tactic you've thrown out there and that's made a difference or an impact, would you say? I appreciate that's a real on the spot question, but I'm curious.
The most, can you repeat it? Like the most impactful sales strategy?
I say like the most unconventional one where maybe someone else in your team's gone, what? You're
Yeah.
doing what? Like,
Or if you cannot tell us, it can be the most successful if you prefer.
yeah.
Okay. So I think reverse psychology in some form, which doesn't really seem that unconventional, but I actually would be taking this from somebody who was on my team, former, who I really thought this was great. Like instead of walking in and trying to spark a conversation with a business owner about what they're currently doing, she would start with, "Hey, I know you love your current credit card processor, right?" And people just want to say no. So they would say, "No, I don't." And I just thought that was great. We don't
Yeah.
want you to love your current credit card processor. Like, we want you to switch. But her MO was like, "Hey, I know you love them. You're super happy with them," because it's a lot of what they get when they walk in. And she had really good results with that. So that's not even technically mine. But when I think of unconventional, like assuming that they're they're not going to want what you have to offer is a strange mind trick even for you, because obviously you want to always be selling and excited that they want to work with you. And that's even having to pivot in your own mind of, I'm sure you don't want, what I have.
You create this curiosity gap or the like this kind of aspect where they want to know more and why you come and
Yeah.
ask this. Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I love that's a great approach.
I almost got you to spit out your water there. That was great.
Yeah, the
It was
timing
like,
was fantastic. I was just like, don't do a spit tape because it's just going to go over all my equipment. But yeah, I saw a competition always. So yeah, you'd have crushed us. But yeah, I know we talked a little bit about AI earlier, and we also talked a little bit what you were saying about the pendulum of like sales and the opportunities that are coming up. But I'm curious what you think the future of sales is going to be like more broadly, and also again, what factor you think AI is going to have its impact on. And I'm talking next 5 years. Like, what do you foresee?
That's so tough, because what I'd like to see and what I actually see, I feel are probably two different things.
Give us both sides of the coin.
So I feel like there's a chance that what I was just explaining, that people are craving that human interaction more, and they will value at some point in the process having some human interaction in the right things, right? Not for me to buy a notebook on Amazon, right? I think there's a place where it fits and a place where it doesn't. But I do see the speed of service and the SaaS world, even all of these different technologies and software. I do see AI being able to get better at that part that I was talking about, where are you properly diagnosing my pain? Do you understand my business? Are you recommending the right solution? I think AI is going to get better and better at learning how to do that. I also think AI is going to get better and better at sourcing the right customers, right? We're so full of data right now. And the more that data is embedded in everything, the more that as a business owner or a salesperson, I can say, who are my top 10 prospects right now? And it can scour the internet and tell you who most needs what you have right now. I think there's wins in a lot of that. I hate to see that we lose the human side of sales. I think sales is a super noble profession when done right. I think what gotten a tougher name over the years. I feel like it's coming back a little bit. Like, people are more happy to say, like, I'm in sales. But I think most salespeople you didn't go to college to be in sales. Like, you somehow
Yeah.
fell into this. So
And
I think that
d- don't you see it like also being like a bit more segmented? Like when you've got like business development, closing, like being a bit more specialized, like maybe before someone was able to handle the full process. And now things are becoming maybe slightly more technical.
I see it. I see it. I've just spent my whole career in, like, as far into the full sales cycle as I think any industry is, right? What I've done my entire career in payments is finding the prospects, right? There's no list, there's nowhere to go, there's no who to target, right? Go sell. Finding the prospects all the way, right? Finding the solution, selling the product, getting the paperwork signed, sending it in, fixing any issues during that process, talking with risk and underwriting and banking and getting it shipped out, installing the device, right? Go in, plug it in, run the card, teach them how to do it. And then they have my cell phone number. I've spent years, I'm like walking into the movies on a Friday night with my kids, and they're like, "Hey, how do I put a tip in?" this credit card machine
Oh
or this
man,
thing's not
that's
working
yeah.
right. And I'm talking to them about that. I'm driving out there on a Saturday morning to swap out the terminal. I'm helping them read statements. So this big, not like just the
Yeah.
sales process, but so much wider than that, servicing and keeping up with them and retaining them. And
As
I
you said,
think,
that's what's creating the relationship when you've been there like all the
yes,
way, like even on a Friday night.
but that's where I was
Yeah.
going, right? Like, I think that there's something that's so good about that that we're missing in segmenting all of this. I think you lose a little bit of the human, the relationship, the person who really cares about you. So the only way to accomplish that though is you got to be compensated for that whole sales process. Right? If you're the person who's going to handle all of that inside of a business, you get paid for all of those roles, right? You're getting paid as the BDR, the AE, the installer, the client support team. Like you got to be able to compensate for that person to be all of it.
We've got some more of these quick fire questions. This is the last one though. So the name of this one is Glen Garry Glen Boss or Glen Garry Get Lost. I'm pretty proud of that name if anyone's seen the movie anyway. So it's basically it's hot or not.
Okay.
So are these out of fashion sales tactics just misunderstood and poorly executed? Or are they just completely outdated at this point? Face-to-face sales calls.
Not outdated. Should all do it more. Everyone needs to go see their clients, give them a hug. AI can't do that.
Trade shows.
Somewhere in between, but I think they're valuable. Again, human interaction, relationships. I don't find them actually as valuable for selling
Mhm.
as I do building your network with partnerships and
Okay.
relationships.
Okay, so more on the B2B side then.
That's the phase before you can give a hug. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hugs are important, guys.
So pitching the product or the service instead of the user benefit.
That's Glenn.
That's
What is
dead.
it? Glen Roll Get Lost.
That's Glen Garry Get Lost. You are the first guest in the short history of us podcasting who's ever successfully quick fired their way through any questions.
In a rapid fire session, actually, with my previous company, that it was like, I think they ask you like 20 questions in 25 minutes or something. So you gotta, it's pretty fun.
Looking back on your career, is there anything you can pinpoint as being your biggest achievement and why it was that for you?
Yeah, I think the selling timeshare over the phone is a big achievement.
Sorry, that is wild. Like a 15, 16 selling timeshares. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so to double down a little bit, I actually got promoted to a closer. I was 16. I was like the person who calls first for a long time. And then I was like I'm pretty determined. So it was very competitive. You get like tick marks on a big board and like who made the most calls or got the most whatever. That is gamification and you'd win prizes at the end of the night. And then they promoted me to the closer person. So I was the person who took the call from the first person and got to get the credit cards and stuff. And I was 16. I was pretty great. It was a great job too. I
Yeah,
was
well
making
done.
crazy money part-time working in the evenings. I think those call centers are still out there if somebody's looking for a part-time evening job. Great stuff.
Wow, some like legit adult who got bumped off being a closer for a kid. Oh, that would sting.
Think about it that way. That's probably true. I was not worried about what they were doing. Real, I don't know what I would maybe like right now, but I feel like I'll continue to feel like that. Like I'm always looking for how do you grow? How can things improve? Where's the next phase of evolution for Andrea? Right. So I think what I'm doing right now, like launching these companies and pouring into people who are really looking for a great place to build their portfolio and a new opportunity. Our previous company was acquired. And I think there's a lot of good people out there in payments who are looking for a place that really cares about them with some culture and camaraderie, but also a lot of flexibility and ability to build their own portfolio. So I think what I'm doing right now with Lumina and with IV Nutrition are both really huge accomplishments that are taking a lot of resilience and confidence and the combination of both, but it's fun. It's a great new challenge.
It's funny. It's like I wrote all these questions out, and then during the course of the podcast, I've been like, I can predict what she's going to say for some of these, but it does feel like you said you're very much in the ascendancy of your career at the moment. Yeah, I think that makes complete
Yeah.
sense. Although the stuff at 16, really impressive. like genuinely. To go the other side of the coin then, what do you think your biggest misstep was? And knowing what you know now, how would you correct it if you ran through everything again?
I'm a super no regrets person. I feel if it wasn't the right choice, I definitely learned something from it. So I really can't tell you that I would go back and I wouldn't go back and change any of it because I genuinely believe if I went back and had a time machine and I could change something, it would the ripple effect of changing everything else. So adversity and pain and things that you go through help you grow to get to the next place and where you are. So I've been through some crazy stuff and I've definitely made missteps in my career and gone head to head with some leaders and ruffled some feathers. And I've had plenty of things that I think if you were to look at them in a written book or in a textbook, you would say, yeah, she probably shouldn't have done that right there. But I definitely wouldn't go back and change it.
Okay. A different way of phrasing it then. What's the biggest lesson experience has taught you? Let's put it that way.
The way that you react today
Mhm.
is yours, right? Like you have to own that. So you can't whatever's going on, whatever's happening in your world, whatever is happening in your head, you've got to decide what good that's going to do you today. And I think salespeople by nature are reactionary. They're urgent. We want to move, right? I think a lot of us are ADHD and we're like blinders on, go fast, go right now, which I think can run you into some problems sometimes. I think you've got to pause sometimes and step back and think about what's your strategy? Where is this going? And I think that's super broad. It applies to everything. It applies to how you interact with your leaders, how you interact with your team, and how you interact with customers. Because I think it's easy to push that deal a little further today when you shouldn't, or not push that deal where you need to because you're nervous, right? Or be challenged by a leader or a boss and snap momentarily when you really probably could have taken that as a growth opportunity, step back, let it sit for a day, and then see how you want to approach it. Same thing when you're motivating a team, right? It's super frustrating to have people missing goals or not doing what they need to do or not seeing what in them, but stepping back and taking a moment and making sure that you're really clear about what you want to get out of the interactions with the people around you, I think helps a lot.
In
Always
then,
great.
in short, then take a beat before deciding, before making your move, essentially.
Yeah, just a quick, right? Don't wait too long. Find your balance there of are you in the right headspace and do you really know what you want out of this interaction before you just jump in?
Very good. Yeah. Spot on. It reminds me when I was a kid, one of my dad's friends, I'd play chess with him. And he told me, I was like 10 or 8 or something, but he'd tell me, like, because I keep trying to move my pieces really quickly, you sit on your hands and then you forcing yourself to take a minute. Although obviously, don't need quite the physical cue for it in real life. So that's the biggest lesson that like
No,
experience. Yeah.
I think there's a place to sit on your hands when before you respond via email because I get going. Let it simmer. Read it
Yeah.
again. I think that's probably the best advice I can give anybody young in leadership and in sales is just let it simmer for a second before you jump in. Sit
So
on your hands.
yeah, sit on your
Take
hands.
care
Yeah.
of it.
I think that's an excellent place to leave it on. I just have one final question, and that is, of course, to Damien. If you had to, could you fly a fighter jet?
For sure. Yeah, he's gonna
No,
say yes.
no, you're mad. Think how long it takes to learn to drive a car. You can't just jump into a fighter jet. This is insane.
I know, but
People are
I
too
would be
confident.
I would, yeah, no, I would be confident on my resilience to learn about it, or to at least try all the buttons and see how it
Try all
takes
the
me.
buttons. It's a weapon.
Well,
Ah,
I think that your next task here, right, for gamification purposes, right? This is a good study.
Don't press the button.
Patient. And you guys run a survey of only entrepreneurs. How many of those people would answer, I think I could fly a fighter jet? Because that's what we're entrepreneurs are flying a fighter jet while they're rebuilding the engine in the air while people are screaming, you're going to wreck
Thank
all
you.
the time.
Thank you.
These-
You understand me.
you are not giving
And
fighter pilots their due respect.
we
Like,
jump in. Calm down. Got it. We're building it. We're doing it. Just
Yeah,
calm
yeah.
down.
I'm just getting a safe distance away, and I want to be in the opposite direction. Andrea, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and yeah, looking forward to the next chapter, and yeah, seeing how it goes with Lumina Payments.
Thank you. I love talking with you guys. I love what you guys are doing and building, and I'm excited to keep watching where you guys go with this. And I love chatting with y'all.
Streamify.